Hello, welcome back to Echo Ministries for our daily devotional. We're transitioning into Others First. I want to encourage you to grab your Bible and turn to Ephesians chapter 1, verses 4 through 8. And then pause this and take a read. After you get done reading that, and we'll come back and we'll talk. Choosing Mary. I'd like to read a letter that appeared in a book by Dan Taylor called Letters to My Children, published way back when, many years ago, back in 1989. But I think it's an interesting story, and I think it fits for us today. Here's what he wrote to his child. He said, "Dear Matthew, when I was in 6th grade, I was an all-American. I was smart, athletic, witty, handsome, and incredibly nice. Things went downhill fast in junior high, but for this 1 year at least, I had everything. Unfortunately, I also had Mrs. Owen for an assistant teacher. She helped Mrs. Jenkins on our regular teacher. She knew that even though I was smart and incredibly nice, there was still a thing or two I could work on. One of the things I was expected to do in grade school was to learn to dance. My parents may have some reservations at first, but since this was square dancing, it was okay. Every time we went to work on our dancing, we did the same terrible thing. The boys would all line up at the door of our classroom. Then, one at a time, each boy would pick a girl to be his partner. The girls all sat at their desk. As they were chosen, they left their desk and joined the snot-nosed kids who had honored them with their favor. Believe me, the boys did not like doing this. At least I didn't. But think about being one of those girls. Think about waiting to get picked. Think about seeing who was going to get picked before you. Think about worrying if you get picked by someone that you couldn't stand. Think about worrying whether you were going to get picked at all. Think if you were Mary. Mary sat near the front of the classroom, on the right side. She wasn't pretty. She wasn't real smart. She wasn't witty. She was nice. That wasn't enough in those days. And Mary certainly wasn't athletic. In fact, she had polio or something when she was younger, and so one of her arms was drawn up. And she had a bad leg. And to finish it off, she was kind of fat. Here's where Mrs. Owen comes in. Mrs. Owen took me aside one day and said, "Dan, next time we have square dancing, I want you to choose Mary." She may as well have told me to fly to Mars. It was an idea that was so new and inconceivable that I could barely hold it in my head. You mean pick someone other than the most pretty, the most popular, when my turn came. This seemed like breaking the law of nature or something. And then Miss Owens did a really rotten thing. She told me it was what a Christian should do. I knew immediately I was doomed. I was doomed because I knew she was right. It was exactly the kind of thing that Jesus would have done. I was surprised in fact that I hadn't seen it in the Sunday school flannel board yet. Jesus choosing the lame girl for their dance. It was bound to be somewhere in the Bible. I agonized. Choosing Mary would go against all the coolness I had accumulated. The day came when we were to square dance again. If God really loved me, I thought, He would make me laugh. Then, picking Mary would not cause a stir. I will have done the right thing, and it wouldn't have cost me anything. You can guess where I was instead. For whatever reason, Mrs. Jenkins made me first in line. There I was, my heart pounding. Now I knew how some of the girls must have felt. The faces of the girls were turned toward me, some smiling. I looked at Mary and saw that she was half turned to the back of the room, her face staring down at her desk. Mrs. Jenkins said, "Okay, Dan, choose your partner." I remember feeling very far away. I heard my voice say, "I choose Mary." Never had a reluctant virtue been so rewarded. I still see her face undimmed in my memory. She lifted her head, and her face reamed with the pleasure and the surprise and embarrassment at the same time, was the most genuine look of delight and even pride I've ever seen, before or since. It was so pure that I had to look away because I knew I didn't deserve it. Mary came and took my arm, and as we had been instructed, and she walked beside me, bad leg and all, just like a princess. Mary is my age now. I never saw her after that year. I don't know where her life's been like or what she's doing, but I'd like to think that she has a fond memory of at least one day in 6th grade. I know I do. Here's what I want you to think and reflect upon this story found in this book by Dan. The good news of the gospel is that we've been chosen by God. You are someone special in the eyes of God. He looks out and over the entire world, and for some reason, God sees us. And just like Dan in that story says, I choose Mary, God says, I choose, and just insert your name. Realizing that truth, that God has chosen us is a key to serving others. God did not choose us for some future just in heaven. He chose us in order to bring His work into the planet and into people's lives. When we realize that Jesus came to earth to serve us in order to win others back into His service, it makes serving others just a little easier as we learn to put others first. I would encourage you to pray today and just give a time of thanksgiving to God for choosing you and asking Him, how am I to serve and put others first today? Thank you. Talk to you tomorrow.